I'm Paul Mangelsdorf, and in 2023 I became the first person to complete Hot Rod Magazine Drag Week in an EV conversion in this shocking Chevy, my 1940 Chevrolet Coupe powered by a Tesla large drive unit and 2 Chevy Volt batteries. In 2024, we went back and did it again, and this time actually made clean runs all week and got good numbers from the car. This is the story of the 2024 event.
Here comes the Electro Chevrolet. Paul Mangelsdorf, the 1940 Chevrolet Coupe. But it's moving pretty good on the top end. He's going to try to get around Fontaine. He does. 1265 for Mangelsdorf in the electrified 1940 Chevy. That's pretty awesome.
It's just a cool thing because I'm the gasoline forever guy, but I do not discourage this behavior.
After Drag Week 2023, there were a lot of issues to solve with the car, and unfortunately the off-season was a comedy of errors. I continued to fix something and break the car a few days later, and so I had the car back on the road basically a week before the event this time. So I had a little bit less stress, but the car was still very much untested leaving for the event. One important improvement over 2023 was that I had an onboard charger that was fully functioning. This meant that when I did need to charge on J1772 AC slow charging, I could pull full power from the station, and this would become important in the middle of the event. I did not, however, finish the upgrade to CCS fast charging in time for the event. So I was going out with CHAdeMO fast charging and a functioning AC onboard charger, but no ability to use CCS stations. This year, Drag Week was in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, beginning at National Trail Raceway to the east of Columbus, Ohio, then going to Indianapolis Raceway Park in Indianapolis, up to US 131 in Martin, Michigan, over to Milan Dragway in Milan, Michigan, and back down to National Trail. Alright, so I've arrived at Drag Week, and I'm on my way to find tech. I am running on about 2 hours of sleep right now. I'm hoping to get a little bit more work done on the car in the pits today, and then get some more sleep. So, let's see how this goes. Alright, so I made it to the tech line. We will see how long this takes. I'm going to try to do a better job of documenting this year compared to last year, where I got videos on basically just the first day. But I think that I've gotten a lot fixed since then, so hopefully everything goes well. I chose not to test the car on registration day, even though the weather was good. I wanted to wait, and if something was going to break it in competition. One thing that really helped in 2024 compared to 2023 is that Hot Rod chose to release all of the routes on Sunday instead of issuing the routes each day. That meant that I could take time on registration day after I was all checked in and the car was teched in. I could take the time and plan some of my routes then. I did, as we went through the week, make some changes to those plans based on what I had actually seen on the road and how the car was performing. But by and large, a lot of the legwork I was able to do on Sunday rather than needing to wait and do that each day before leaving the track. That meant that once I was done, I could pack up, take a few minutes to write out some notes on the directions they gave us, and get on the road. My first pass on Monday, the car went straight down the track without tripping any safeties and any other issues, and ran a 12.3. That was great. That was the best pass the car has made, and I chose to get on the road for Indianapolis.
All right, here comes our home-built, electrified 1940 Chevy Coupe. Paul Mangelsdorf built this thing.
I remember this.
And
yes,
we went and
this
hung out
rules.
with him. It is an amazingly neat thing. He built this whole car himself, and Bob Ritchie, the 88 Camaro on the right side. It's a battery out of a GM product, I believe, right? So it was a Chevy battery, maybe?
Mangelsdorf is a good name for this guy. He really collected junkyard parts in building his own electric car, and he was camping out of it.
Yes.
We'll have to see if that's his program this year.
He was plugged into a 110 RV outlet, charging it last year at one of the drag strips. Goes 1233 at 108. You can't argue with that. And he really methodically plans out his drives on these routes to figure out where he can charge it and stuff. 1082.5 on the right side. Big respect for Paul and that little hot rod.
After making that pass on Monday, I headed out for Indianapolis. The route was on and off of I-70 and I believe it was US 40 that parallels it. So there was a decent amount of charging infrastructure, but there were a couple holes in the charging network. I had a couple chargers act up, but largely was making time. I was being very cautious and stopping at basically every charger I could and keeping the speed fairly low to make sure that I was making it to each charger. I was starting to see a little better efficiency than I thought, but I wanted to be very careful. The one area that I ran into an issue was that my second to last charging stop on the east side of Indianapolis was at a Nissan dealership. And when I arrived there at around 1 or 2 in the morning, the dealership had chains and gates across all of the entrances and cars blocking any other way into the dealership. This was not something I'd had to deal with before, but is understandable. Unfortunately, as I was looking at the map, there weren't any other good options to charge the car in that vicinity, and I really needed to pick up some charge to make it to the last charging stop on the west side of Indianapolis. Fortunately, as I was trying to figure this out, a night watch that the dealership had showed up. He was there to let trucks in as they were delivering and picking up cars, and he was willing to let me in so that I could go charge. So I was very thankful for that, and I was able to pick up a charge. It was a slower charger. It was CHAdeMO, but it was only putting out 20 kilowatts. So it took a little bit to charge up there, and then I was able to finish the drive and make one more stop before getting into Indianapolis Raceway Park at around 3:15 in the morning. On day 2, I did try to tweak the tune a little bit to get a little bit more performance out of the car. Unfortunately, on the first pass of the day, it again tripped the safety, and so I took that back out of it, made another pass, and ran 12:1, which was again the car's best time. I was quite happy with that, so I packed up and headed on to US 131. So I'm going up now to make my second attempt. First one hit the safety and shut off, so I put back in the settings that I had yesterday, and we're going to go with that. Might do a longer burn, I don't know. Not that it necessarily needs it, but they're fun.
Paul Mangelsdorf coming back up again. He had an issue. Had to kind of cycle the power on that car on the last run. It is the 1940 Chevy Coupe. Electrified. He did all the work himself. It's home built. Mustang on the other side is just a very clean sleeper over there. That New Edge car is just rolling.
New Edge
1097.
New Edge Bullet 1097 at only 90 miles an hour. And the electric car 1214 112.
Thank you. 12-1, yes! This drive, I was not anticipating how much grade we were going to go up, and I did have a couple long segments between charging stops. I had one charging issue in mid-afternoon where a charger on the north side of Kokomo, Indiana was not willing to talk to the car. It was an EV Connect charger, and I had issues with EV Connect chargers all week. Fortunately, there was another one in town that I was able to backtrack to and pick up a charge there before continuing on up towards South Bend, Indiana. There was a bit of back and forth as the route actually backtracked on itself this year, as it went over to a checkpoint and then came back across. The checkpoint was to the east of Elkhart, and it came back across and over before heading north again. Running through the night, I had pretty good luck with charging. The one issue I ran into on that drive was my last stop before the track was at a Ford dealership where I was planning to pick up a little bit of charge on J1772 so the car would be topped off and ready for the morning. Unfortunately, that station was down and I had no luck getting it back up. So I did need to pay for and plug in at the track the next day to top the car off before making a pass. At both US 131 and Milan, the runs at the beginning of the day were a bit delayed by fog. That ended up working out fine, and I was able to make one clean pass. It ran a 12-1 again. It looks like I've got a solid 12-1 tune, so I took that and headed out on what I knew was going to be the most difficult drive of the week from US 131 to Milan, Michigan.
This, the home-built electric 1940 Chevrolet of Paul Mangelsdorf. Biff Rollins on the left-hand side.
This is the greatest EV to ever run Drag Week.
He did request electricity here at the racetrack, and it is a 100% home-built electric vehicle with batteries and parts from various modern EVs, all tucked inside the old crusty, rusty 1940 Chevrolet.
On the drives, we have seen him at the side of the road behind gas stations and stuff, charging it up. 11:28 on the left-hand side. The electric car, 12:15, 110.
Nice run. I think that's as quick as we've ever seen that thing go.
I was thinking that as well.
of 110. Now, this was not one of the longer drives of the week, but The route sent us south and then east across southern Michigan in a very rural part of the state where there was not much charging infrastructure for the standards that I could use. I was able to get one fast charge near the beginning of the route, and then I had to charge on J1772 several more times along before getting one more fast charge before reaching the track. The one thing that was quite irritating was PlugShare showed a CHAdeMO port about halfway through the route, right where I was going to need a charge, and that station didn't actually exist. It was a station at a Chevy dealership that only had 2 CCS ports. Fortunately, I was able to backtrack to a Ford dealership that had some J1772 infrastructure to charge on AC, where I also was sitting next to some CCS stations that I wasn't able to use. This was very frustrating as I knew I was very close to getting CCS working on the car, but it just wasn't in the cards. I was able to get into Milan Dragway at around 4:15 in the morning, so I did have some time to set up the tent and get some sleep before running that day. At Milan, we again had a very heavy fog delay. The fog lasted for a while, but once again, the car went up and printed another 12.1, and so I packed up and hit the road on the last drive of the day.
And here comes the electrified Chevrolet Coupe. Home-built EV here for Paul Mangelsdorf and Austin Baden on the right side. Mangelsdorf running in the 12s earlier this week. Mangelsdorf goes 12, 12, and 110. That thing is headed for the 11s. Austin Baden goes 10:45 at 107 miles an hour, but for Paul Mangelsdorf, he is really starting to lean on that thing, and he goes a 12, 12, and 110.
This drive ended up actually being quite fun, since I had left early enough, and there was one spot in there I knew I was going to have to sit on slow charging, but I left early enough that I hit the first checkpoint while other people were there. I got down to one spot that I knew I was going to have to sit on J1772 for a while, and got that charge, and then got back on the route, and it was still daylight. So I then hit the second checkpoint in the daylight when a lot of people were around, and when I knew from the map that I had plenty of charging infrastructure from there all the way to the track. So I was able to have fun driving the car, to mess around a bit on the way there, and get back to National Trail with the car at a really good state of charge. Friday is when I got to really play with the tune on the car. I debated whether I was going to go up and put an aggressive tune in it first, or if I was going to try to make a good pass first. I ended up deciding to go up and run a good pass, and got my 12.1 once again, and at that point I'd fully finished the week.
Paul Mangelsdorf on the left-hand side. Have you eyeballed this one in your journey through the pits? It is an electric car. He's been camping out of it.
Yes. Paul is doing his thing, man. You know, you have your reservations and your concerns about electric vehicles. Of course, we all know about that, David, but that's really a cool car, man. And it runs 12s, dude.
1210 at 111 miles an hour.
I decided to start tweaking on the tune a bit. I made one adjustment to the tune and went up and ran a 12.0.
Not frequently, but occasionally, yeah.
The boat is back.
The Jenny.
Wave bye-bye. And the electric car on the right-hand side. You know, I have no animosity on this electric car program at all.
0%.
I don't even hate guys who love brand new electric cars. That's fine. I just don't need to live it. Oh, he's getting so much closer to the 11s.
That would be cool.
12.044 at 111. That's awesome.
And then I made another small adjustment to the tune, went up and hit the safety. So I went back and I pulled some of that tune out, and one of the things, thinking about those 2 times it hit the safety, on day 2 and day 5, I realized in both cases I'd done a fairly short burnout before the pass. And on both of those, I had been at lower states of charge than other passes that were successful. So this was not necessarily a case of just having too much voltage and pulling too much power. There was something about my procedure getting up to the line that it wasn't quite happy with. So for my last run of the day on Friday, I made a bit of a tweak to the tune. It wasn't quite as aggressive as the time that it tripped, but it was more aggressive than the pass before. I had it sitting on a charger, so it was back up at about the same state of charge as the previous 12.1 and the 12.0, and I went and made some adjustments to the rear shocks. I hadn't really done much tuning of the suspension, but I decided if I was going to go up there and try to break into the 11s, I was going to need everything I could get. So I set the rear shocks in basically the middle of QA1's range for them, and went up with this, it was a very small tweak to the tune and a tweak to the shock settings. I did a long burnout all the way to the lights, and then staged the car and ripped off an 11.7 at 114, the best pass the car's ever made, well into the 11s. I can clearly say that this is now an 11-second car. Overall, Drag Week 2024 just proved to me how awesome of an adventure these events are, and I'm absolutely going to have the car out again. I'm already working on plans for what the next build will be to make these events even more fun for me. I would love to have a little bit more range so that I can enjoy the route a little bit more. I'd love to go faster, and so there's definitely some upgrades still for the car, and I was able to get CCS working right after Drag Week. So there's a lot more fun to be had, but again, I implore you to come out and do one of these events, because the adventure, the camaraderie, the pushing yourself in your car is just an amazing experience you can't get anywhere else. And so once again, it was a great time on Drag Week. I'm glad that I did it, and I hope to see you out there.